For most of tonight's programme, we're going to focus on an outfit that's given rise to literally hundreds of stories for the Australian mainstream media. Mostly those frothy, what are we really like yarns that the media, and presumably therefore media consumers like you and me, adore.
A study exploring what humiliates us most revealed food in teeth, skirts blowing up in the wind and open pants zips are among things that horrify Australians.
New research into Australians' attitudes towards tipping confirms we are penny pinchers when it comes to rewarding good service.
Dining al desco. New research reveals 1 in 4 Australian employees now eat lunch at their desk.
Those stories and many, many more in recent years were based on media releases from an outfit called McCrindle Research. At its principal, Mark McCrindle pops up everywhere.
And this morning we're joined by social researcher Mark McCrindle to find what makes this techno-smart generation so different from the rest of us. Good morning.
Morning,
Thanks
Mark.
for your time this morning, Mark.
Morning, Kim. Hi, David.
My next guest has been thinking a lot about this. He's Mark McCrindle, who trained as a psychologist and is now one of Australia's leading social researchers.
Our favourite social demographer, Mark McCrindle.
I can't believe this. 90% of Aussies are honest. Is that really true?
The research shows that it is, more than 9 in 10 will be honest even if it costs them personally. So, look, it is the land of being fair dinkum, being true blue.
But how fair dinkum is McCrindle Research? It's a question that almost nobody in the media appears to have asked, but the answers we've got aren't reassuring. Take that survey on tipping, for example. McCrindle Research issued this media release in October 2008.
Australians are tiny tippers and proud of it.
It generated plenty of media interest in newspapers, radio, and from Mel and Koshy on Seven's Sunrise.
It's their job to serve. That's the idea of hospitality.
That's exactly right. And a lot of the we surveyed 1,000 people and they were all saying this, that we don't want it to become an excuse for employers not to pay people properly.
1,000 people. That claim was repeated in the Melbourne Herald Sun the next day.
Just over half the 1,000 people surveyed by a national social trends company said they never or very rarely tipped.
But according to documents that have come MediaWatch's way, that survey's conclusions were based on responses from far fewer than 1,000 people. McCrindle Research used online surveys with a panel of recruits. Each member of the panel may or may not choose to respond to any particular survey. They were often given many months to do so. The surveys, at least until August last year, were conducted through a platform called SurveyMonkey. We've been sent SurveyMonkey screenshots, taken in August 2010, that summarise more than 170 McCrindle surveys that were active at that time. The survey, called
Your Take on Tipping,
was first created on
January 17, 2008,
and by August 2010 had just
671
responses. But we also have a detailed data set that tabulates each individual response to the online survey and shows when it was received. Between the 18th of January 2008, when the survey was put online, and the 31st of October that year, when the media release was issued, just 128 people responded to the tipping survey. About 1/8 of the 1,000 people that Mark McCrindle claimed. Another example. A heartwarming good news story in a media release dated April 2009.
Kindness in Australia. In our research, we found that for every act of violence to a stranger, there are 38 acts of kindness towards fellow Australians.
And what did that research consist of?
Research method, National Survey of 2,500 Australians by McCrindle Research.
A claim loyally relayed to its readers by the Herald Sun.
Nearly a third of 2,500 people surveyed said they showed kindness every day.
But according to the SurveyMonkey screenshot taken well over a year later, the survey, called
Giving and Receiving Kindness,
had still received only
530
responses, about 1/5 of the number claimed by McCrindle Research. Time and again, we found that claims made by McCrindle Research and relayed in the media.
A survey by Mr. McCrindle's company, McCrindle Research, found Aussies were a surprisingly superstitious bunch. Just over half of the 1,000 respondents considered themselves superstitious.
Just aren't supported by the numbers who responded to the surveys.
Very superstitious, 118.
But that's not the only problem. Mark McCrindle claims that his research panel, which he calls australiaspeaks.com, is
the National Representative and Research Only Panel.
Well, hardly. Of the 1,100 people who had responded to an Australia Speaks survey by August 2009, more than 75% were female. And we have evidence that the composition of the panel in October 2008 was very similar. This is a detailed breakdown of the 1,400 or so members of the Australia Speaks panel at that time. The gender breakdown was
female 76%,
male 24%.
Furthermore, 57% of the panel lived in New South Wales, most of them in southwestern Sydney. That's not a representative panel. We don't have absolutely up-to-date information. It's possible that the Australia Speaks panel, which McCrindle Research these days claims is
a national representative and research-only panel of 5,000 Australians,
is just what it claims. What we do know is that Mark McCrindle is still publishing conclusions that seem to have been based on absurdly thin foundations. For example, in early 2009, the Sydney Sun-Herald reported that
a December 2008 report by Mark McCrindle, the principal of McCrindle Research, shows 82% of Gen Y ranked recession as the issue they most fear.
It's a claim repeated in this book by Mark McCrindle, first published in 2009 and updated this year.
The ABC of XYZ, Understanding the Global Generations. In our research on Gen Y and the economic crisis, we found that they were the most fearful of an impending recession, with 82% of Gen Y ranking a recession as the issue they most feared.
So what did that research consist of? Well, we understand it was based on a survey of the Australia Speaks panel called
Your View on the Economy,
created on
October 15, 2008.
According to this survey summary from October 2008, the maximum number of respondents to any question was
153.
A separate survey isolates the Gen Y responses.
Answered question, 22.
That's right. Mark McCrindle's original research on Gen Y's views of the economy was based on just 22 respondents, and 60% of them lived in New South Wales. McCrindle researchers told MediaWatch that
of the 465 responses in this survey, there were 87 responses from those aged at the time 15 to 29 years.
But most of them were received long after the original media release was issued almost 3 years ago. And even 87 responses is a tiny number compared to the
survey of 1,000 people
that McCrindle Research claimed it was based on. Well, so what? After all, most of the stories are hardly of earth-shattering importance.
Tell us, what do we love most about ourselves as Australians?
We love the top 5 things were the landscape and the climate. We love that. We love the way of life that we have here. We love the people. 4th on the list was the freedom that we have here, and then finally the peace and safety that we have.
Well, it matters because the media have been happily running this stuff for years without apparently ever bothering to question its claims. It's just typical of the dross that fills our TV, radio and newspapers every day. But all the media coverage gives McCrindle Research the publicity to attract private paying clients, and it gives Mark McCrindle a high profile on the lucrative public speaking circuit.
Speaker details. Mark McCrindle. Mark's understanding of the key issues facing the emerging generations places him in high demand as a commentator in the press, on radio, on 2UE and ABC, and on television shows such as Sunrise, The Today Show, 7 p.m. Project, A Current Affair, Today Tonight.
Everyone's backs are scratched, everyone's happy. We've posed a series of questions to McCrindle Research about the information we've received. It's responded with denials and legal threats, but very few answers and explanations.